Hey everyone, welcome to our session about Microsoft Entra Private Access for 1,000 plus users, so a big environment for Dutch standards. So I'm from the Netherlands, Gerjon Kunst. I'm CTO at Rawworks, Microsoft MVP, and we did a really cool project with this when this was just out at a customer, and I did it together with my colleague. Yep.
I'm Mr. Remkes, Senior Workspace Consultant at Rawworks, and implemented the Enterprise Access suite at the customer.
Yes. Okay, cool. So, first up, thanks to our sponsors for making this possible and giving us this awesome location, which is really cool. Always wanted to be here. So, what we're going to cover today. So, first up, has anyone here used Microsoft Secure Private Access? A few hands. Does everyone know what it is? Most of you know. Okay, so we'll skip over the first part a bit easy, then we have more time for the use case. So we do a little bit about what is the Entra Private Access. We talk about the use case, how we implemented it, and what we learned, because there's a lot to learn when you're implementing new stuff.
Yes. First of all, let's start with a high level. You have your global secure access client, which talks to Microsoft Entra. It has the quick access app and your enterprise apps and also your security controls. After that, your connector, private connector, and there your private resources, which you need to connect to. Let's start with the end user device. It needs, for the best experience, it needs a hybrid joint or an Enter ID joint device. And it gets a DNS suffix into your NFTP table, and if it recognizes it's probably private traffic, it grabs it, intercepts it, and checks it against your app segments, your enterprise apps. It tunnels it to Entra. There you have your identity verification, your conditional access policies, your risk policies, and it's all connected to the Microsoft Edge network. Then you have your connector, and the connector only has outbound connection, so you don't need to open any firewall ports inbound from out of your wall. It's a zero trust solution. It's fully integrated with conditional access, so you have also your options there. It's a modern type of a VPN solution, and it's a per app solution, so it's identity driven and per app, so you don't have a full connection to the entire subnet anymore. So that's very, very nice feature. Like I said, it's per app. You have a quick access app. In your quick access app is ideal to configure your domain controllers. You configure the private DNS settings there, and because of that, it just recognizes the FQDNs of your websites.
You're spoiling the next slides.
Sorry.
No, but in the end, no, that's one thing on my mind. Now, in the end, it's just, you don't need a VPN, it's outbound connection, so it greatly reduces your visibility on the internet for inbound problems. Looking at this is the licensing bit. Yeah. You need Entra P1, and then based on what you want, you can have the only the secure private access or the internet access for $5 a month, which is a steal. Or you can just have the Entra suite, and if you're feeling lucky, you can buy the complete E7, where it's also in place. Now this is where the fun part begins, and then I'm giving it back to you. Okay.
When you have applied the license, you can enable your private access profile, your traffic forwarding profile. And that's exactly also what your client is going to download and going to put into your GSA client. I recommend to use, or you need to assign a user group, and I recommend to use that same group for your license, your private access profile, your client deployment, and your quick access app, your configuration settings, all that kind of things. So every user gets a base set of its settings and the apps.
Yeah, and the cool thing here is you can see, are there any linked access policies, are there any groups assigned, and are there any specialized condition access, etc. So you can see per part. I'm using private access to connect to the internal network. I'm using Microsoft Traffic Profile if you have the complete bundle to tunnel everything to Microsoft, and I'm using the Internet Access Profile to tunnel my Internet access.
Excellent.
And you can see what's happening where. And this is the sheet you were spoiling a bit earlier.
Sorry.
No, but what happens if a user clicks on an application and he wants to have that application and it's running in the internal network, but the user is not at the office. So it clicks on the, let's say, SAP, one of the first apps we need to deploy this customer was SAP. It clicks on the SAP client, then the GSA client says, hey, it seems like the application is running to a DNS internal suffix IP, an internal DNS suffix. So I think I need to route it through the cloud and then to connect it to the internal network. So what it does, it picks up the first IP packet and checks if it's for him or it has to go on the internet. And then the network connector that is installed in the data center shouts out to the cloud saying, hey, is there anyone that wants an inbound connection that needs something information from me? And then the information will be sent to the internal network. And if the customer is in the internal network, there's you can use ILA, which we'll discuss in a bit, to see, if we have line of sight to the application, can we run it directly, because that saves on latency. Because if it has to go to the cloud and back, it will add latency to the client-server communication.
Simply. Thank you. And
Then this is the next slide.
yes, this is your private network connector deployment. Where do you deploy it? You have two options in this case. You can put it on a place and you can shoot a holes in your firewall to each subnet, or you can deploy it within each separate subnet. On the last one, you need more connectors, of course. Always 2 per subnet, and if you have a segmented network, you can make the footprint of the VM also smaller. So that's quite nice. And if you do that, you also need more side connector groups.
Yes. So the idea is that if you install a connector in an internal network, it needs to have a line of sight to the application, because it's just tunneling everything from the cloud to the internal application. Just like in the old days where we would put our server-based computing or Citrix servers on that place where we can connect to the different backend services. So this is a little bit more about the ILA protocol. Go ahead.
Yeah. ILA is very nice if you have I/O heavy applications like SAP with a database connection. So it really doesn't like latency. It recognizes if you are on the internal network, and if so, it does the traffic routing locally when it has a line of sight to your private resource. If not, if you're working from home, that kind of things, it just routes it through the cloud of Microsoft.
Yeah.
This is a slide about private access sensors. And private access sensors are an extra layer of security where you can force your traffic for a application over the Microsoft cloud. And if you do that, it just you get a CarePost ticket only if it is residing from or flowing through your private network connector. And that's also why, if you use this, you need to make exceptions for your server, VLAN, or subnet.
Yeah, so the idea of this one, sorry.
Yeah.
So just to summarize it up, you can add an extra layer of security because every communication to the backend system that you're connecting has to come through the cloud. It has to come through secure private access. So you can't. And if you're in this, if my laptop has the GSA client not running and I'm connecting directly to SAP, I will get an error saying invalid Kerberos ticket because there's no Kerberos ticket issue because my communication hasn't been done through the cloud for this application.
Yes.
So you can see now that there are a few things. If you enable ILA and private access server on the same application, it will not run when you're at the office because it will try to connect directly, and the private access server will say, that's not true because your Kerberos ticket is not valid.
Yes, exactly.
So some signals and our requirements.
Yes, signals and our requirements. First of all, you need Windows Hello for Business. Next to that, you need your Cloud Kerberos Trust implemented. And with Cloud Kerberos Trust, you also need your Intune settings for Cloud Kerberos Trust. Next to that, you have to disable your Kerberos negative cache. Because what happens if your client is booted up and does not have yet has a connection with GSA, it requests already a Kerberos ticket. And if it does not get a response, it's getting into your negative cache, which your user experience is down the drain then, because it takes 10 minutes before it comes out of the negative cache. So
and you get pop-up.
Exactly, yeah. And so it takes 10 minutes, and so you just need to disable it, so you don't have the problem anymore. Next, for web apps, internal web apps, you need to do your internal domain name just with an
IoT.local or whatever.
yeah, something like that. Do that in your Edge settings, the auth server allow list, so it is allowed to authenticate against the internal web app. And you need SPN records for it on premises. Implementation of the client. The client can be deployed from out of Intune. You need to make a Win32 app of it. You need to have your device compliance rules implemented, and you need a conditional access baseline. Like I said in the previous slide, you need to have implemented your signals and all prerequisites. Windows Hello for Business, the Cloud Kerberos Trust, very important. And you need to decide what you do with your IPv6 traffic. And last one, use group-based licensing, like I said earlier. Use it for all of your things as a base package for your user. I tested it, it works great. This is an example of the conditional access policy. First of all, you have your users which you are assigning to your conditional access policy. If you target resources such as your quick access app, your other enterprise apps with your private access rules, so your FQDNs, IP addresses, and ports. The client is always recognized as coming. The traffic always is recognized as coming from a compliant network. So you can build a really secure conditional access policy that way. You have your conditions such as your user risk policies. So with that, you can just say, okay, only low risk users are allowed to connect to this app. If not, you get blocked. Next one, you have your grant section. In that grant section, you are, of course, only allowing connection if you have MFA, a satisfied MFA open.
Yeah.
And the next thing is your that you need a compliant device. And the last one on the session tab, it's where you can configure your sign-in frequency. When do you need to satisfy your MFA?
Yeah,
Is it every hour, every 24 hours? Choose your thing.
Every 5 minutes. That would
Every 5 minutes.
do something with the user
I don't
experience.
think that's a possibility.
Oh,
But yes. And this is where extra security gets involved, you can connect it with access packages. So the default, no access, first requested automatic approval or approver, choose what you want. And if you have enabled it, requested it, and have an approval, you can just go and open your app.
Yeah. And then, of course, every customer has to bring your own scenario.
Yeah.
That's something that, in theory, is possible.
Don't do it.
It's really complex to get that up and running because of you can't deploy the agent automatically. You don't know if you need to have it Entra joined. There are a lot of things.
Yes, you don't have compliance.
Exactly. So there's a lot of stuff, and so what we did in this scenario, and we'll get to that when we do the use case, is said, well, just use a video cloud.
Yeah.
Just make your life easy for contractors that use their own hardware. So, enough with the theory. A lot of it may sound familiar, and hopefully we showed you something that you didn't know or should do otherwise, or can do otherwise, but the use case. So we had a Dutch public transportation organization. They had about 5,000 employees. Most of them drive on a bus or a train or a tram or whatever, but there are 1,000 that do work around that. Office, planning, whatever. They have the sweet spot, like a lot of our customers, Citrix, VMware, Ivanti, Microsoft. And they want to get to the next level. So they said, we want a hybrid IT landscape, that's what we have. We have a high number of applications, a lot of them legacy, some, for example, or whatever, a lot of stuff that's been there for years. We have multiple persona-based workplace types, so we have laptops, we have shared kiosks, we have any type of client device, private phones, company-owned phones, etc. So what we wanted to do is, they wanted to replace Citrix. Because the hardware was old and they didn't want to invest in new hardware and the licensing. So, and they have some traditional VPN style access that they said, well, we want to reduce our internet posture, VPN, whatever. So we want to kill that also if possible. We wanted to embrace the zero trust network that as Microsoft envisions it. We wanted to reduce exactly the network level exposure. We want to improve the control of the per application. You can get to that application and you can get to that application. More on the application level. And the key constraint is building with the shop open. So Citrix needs to keep working and we need to build this next to it and then migrate users slowly to it. And we want to limit the number of vendors because this is also a lot of vendors and they have a lot more. They have a server hardware, client hardware, and they wanted to reduce the number. So they said, okay, we'll build an infrastructure modernization project. That has a few steps. It has something to do with replacing our server-based computing farm, which is on-premise at the moment. We have some application optimization because we have 700 applications with 1,000 users, which is a lot, you can say. We wanted to move out of the old data center into Azure. And we wanted to do something with AI because that's cool. That's what all the cool kids do. That gave us the opportunity to help them with the project called the Workplace of the Future. And the idea was, okay, we have to find something to replace server-based computing with, and we do some optimization for the application optimization. What we found out quickly is we still have legacy apps, and a lot of them, like every company, your company and your customers included. And we need something to get those legacy apps working on that modern workplace. And finding the owner of every one of those 700 apps is a real pain in the pee. Because nobody wants ownership and we don't know this application. Yeah, we've been paying licenses for years, but we don't know who owns the application and we don't even know who uses it. Well, that takes a lot of time. So that gave us the following setup. We wanted a modern workplace. We're going to use Intune and the MIM on the Intune side to get laptops up and running, get the phones up and running, and they wanted zero trust. Okay. So that's when traditional VPN does not cut it because it's a VPN inside, and then once you get in, you can have access to everything that the VPN gives you access to. which is not application-based, it's port-based. So we also had a lot of issues with them calling because of when they are on the move, that the VPN would fall away, would not connect correctly back, all that kind of stuff that you know, anti-LAN pop-ups when the connection was lost, not rebuilt correctly. So there were two, we and another company were both giving ideas on how to solve that. And the other company said, we're going to use Zscape. And we said, well, that does not fit in a lean where you have less suppliers. So introducing a new one does not solve that issue. It's a good solution, but it does not solve that issue. And we said, this secure private access sounds like a cool thing. I think we can solve your issue with that. And they said, well, give it a go. And we did. Yeah. So what we built, and I got this off the internet from Cloud Inspire. Not everything is AI, sometimes it's just Google. And we built it. So we didn't build that bit, so not the internet access bit, but we built the secure private access bit. The internet access bit is something that's coming later on. So they first solve your problem, then solve the challenge. The problem is server-based computing needed to go out the window. We needed a solution for that. So we built that and it works. How we triaged all those 700 applications is a different cup of tea. So what we first did is we needed a quick access group. What Tristan already said, you need to have the basics. We need to have DNS in place. We needed to know everybody needs to connect to the file server, so the file server should be in a quick access group. What is something that everybody would need? We put that in a quick access group. In wave 2, we said the business critical applications need to work, otherwise, what's the point in doing it? Getting the complex application to run first, because you can get 80% of the applications running, but if the 20% that's the most critical is not running, then the project will fail. So we said, okay, we'll start with the complex one, and if we can get that one to work, then we can scale out and scale further.
Important for your adoption.
Yeah, also important for the adoption, because and then there are applications that would not fit. For example, industrial UDP heavy tools, we thought, okay, let's do with that, we'll defer that and we'll get to that later. That's also a cool thing, problem for later, not for now. So what we did is we needed to get the things moving fast. So we said, okay, we know the problem, give us a few requirements of what needs to work to have a valid POC. We'll check if it works, and we do the POC. And we did the POC in a day. Yeah. We give them the prerequisite. They installed the connector on the place where they wanted the SAP to be connected, and some other application and file server in the printer. Tristan went on location and said, okay, we'll just configure this, apply, please test.
So the Intune settings.
Intune settings, deployment, etc.
Yeah.
Not the deployment in Intune, instead we're just getting installed, getting up and running and seeing if it works. Yeah. So we got it up and running in a day. That was really cool.
Yeah.
And the customer said, okay, this sounds like something that's working. And the fun part is that because of the way this is organized, that application like SAP worked instantly.
Instantly, yeah. No problem.
And we didn't even have issues with latency.
No, they were quite surprised by how good the performance was.
This feels like an interview.
Yeah, yeah. They were really surprised.
Yeah, no, they were really surprised by how little the latency affected the performance of the application. Because we all know SAP is an awesome application.
I even tested it on a 5G connection. So they only said, oh, is this already the result on a 5G connection? I said, yes. Oh, so it can only get better and better. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and they also tested it on trains and moving stuff, and that also, it worked good. So we did the proof of concept testing. Does it work at all? Yes. And then we did the pilot testing, say, can we roll it out safely and does it work as we wanted it to? So then we got into the project. So we started building the architecture, the deployment. So we needed to also discuss with security and compliance and all those architecture board, etc. We needed to fly by them to get everything approved and built up. So first we needed to find out, okay, we have this basic quick add group. Is that the correct group? Do we need to add anything now? And as always, some things come out of the woodwork saying, okay, you need to add this, you need to add that, you can remove that. We need to have the connector strategy. Well, the cool thing is there is, don't do that. You have a private access sizing planner. Okay, We'll talk fast. Where you can see, okay, based on the number of applications that's running through the connector, the number of users, and you need to have this network bandwidth, this CPU, this memory, so that you can scale your connectors on the correct way. So where should we put them? And because they're in a migration scenario, we put some in the internal network and some in Azure networks, and they just connected from the GSA client to the cloud, and the cloud directly to the correct connector. So we built the access model, so the quick access for the shared infra. We did the pilot. We put the persona or the department with the least amount of applications, but with the core applications at base. We started with them, and then we did the factory rollout where we did all the handouts and everyone was onboarded. And then you say, okay, but how do you onboard 1,000 users? So what we did is everybody had to bring back their old laptop, because there was also a hardware refresh on the laptops. That is a good moment because everybody needs to come in. Then there were a few adoption consultants that showed them how the new workplace would work. We would have champion users and floor walkers on the locations to help them in the first few weeks getting up to speed. And we also had a chatbot online because that's cool. They can ask questions because you need a chatbot. Every project needs a chatbot. And online Q&A sessions. So you could call and ask sessions, or you could do a Teams channel for questions, whatever. So, and then, so this is the happy flow, but there's always a not so happy flow, and that requires a lot of troubleshooting.
Yeah.
So,
thank you. You have a few troubleshooting tools and steps you can do. First of all, is your client working? Is your DNS working? Is single sign-on working? You can test that with your klist command, because if you have a Kerberos ticket, it shows up in klist with the klist command. Don't use an administrative so run as administrator,
No.
because it is another user context. So don't do that.
been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also. You can check if your profile, formatting profile is working by testing a few things. Are the health checks in Entra green? Is there a problem in Entra at that moment? You can always have a look, and then you have your first solution. Just wait. You can run the GSA tracer tool to check what's happening there.
What is this one?
And one other tool is Wireshark. If you have a blocked port or something like that, it shows up in your Wireshark logging.
Yeah.
Because you just are getting black lines, and then you know, okay, I forgot to open a port on the firewall or in your GSA client.
Yeah, because it's not a stateful connection using ping, etc. does not work, or
Exactly.
trace it to.
Yeah. So then you know I need to add an extra port in your enterprise application. Cloud logging only works when there is, of course, a connection, because otherwise it doesn't even get there.
Information is not stored in the cloud, so we can see any logging. So first you have to get the client connected. So we need to have the client connected to the cloud. And of course there are some event logs that you can check on the cloud side.
Yes.
But what if the problem is not on the client? What if it's on the connector? So the thing that's in the data center where everything is connected to. They have event logs on the connector itself, of course. But the connector is connected to the backend application where it needs to have line of sight. So any firewalls that are between the connector and the backend applications, you need to check those to see if anything is blocked.
Yeah.
You can run the connector diagnostic tool, which is in the top right for you guys, to see if all the system checks are okay. You can change the config file to run extra logging.
Yes.
But don't run it for extended piece of time, because the log file will get so big you can't open it anymore.
A few gigs.
Been there.
And then if you have a log file that big, then you first need to shut down your service, throw away your log file, restart your service, do the testing again, and then you can open the log file, and then you have, oh, that's the problem. No, okay, I need to fix that.
Yeah.
But if it is a few gigs big, you cannot even open your log file anymore.
Yeah, computer says no then.
Yeah.
Because it's too big. And you can test connection on the computer name board to see if there is a line of sight. 10 minutes. Oh, we're getting there. And once you get everything up and running and it's still not working, you can check in Entra to get some monitor sign-in logs for global secure access to see if the device compliance is correct or if there's another problem. And you can check the traffic logs to see if traffic is sent through Entra, through the cloud service to the endpoint. So we done a lot of testing and a lot of, because in the happy flow, it just works. But in the practice, as we all know, it mostly doesn't. But we got everything fixed. And the outcome is that secure private access was a much better fit than Zscaler for this customer because of pricing. Microsoft, an existing vendor in an existing landscape, which they trusted. All the correct security things were in place. All the checks have been done, regulatory checks, etc. And it wasn't really a complex implementation in the end. Once you get your basics, I see you nodding, but once you get your basics in order, it just works. And then you get a lot of stuff with firewall ports or connection being blocked or clients crashing or whatever, but implementing it in the basics is not really complex. So also the handout to the existing IT team that's doing the rollout in production and support wasn't that complex.
No.
So all applications work via secure private access. So we were surprised by ourselves that the latency issues were not that big, that some applications still needed some kind of server-based computing stuff. So it all just works. So being IT, we still want a back way in. So the VPN is now being used only on admins and everybody else is just using this. So Citrix is phased out except for the people that are on the road, because those are in phase 2. We first needed to get the big batch over, which are office users, and now we're looking at, okay, how can we connect the shared kiosk modes? How can we remove those, or can we make them so they forget the login once you log out, and when you log in, that they connect using the GSA client?
Yes.
The performance is good enough. We got a lot less 20% reduction in help desk calls, which is a little bit of this, but we got less calls because the Citrix environment was 5, 6, 7, I think 8-year-old hardware.
Yeah.
So you can imagine log-on times being long, performance issues, stability issues. So those are all gone with a laptop that you just open, you log on, and you get to work.
And the most mainstream workers don't even need a Citrix environment anymore.
No.
Because it just can work. But
Yeah, they can just work on the laptop, everything is there. So the time to log on was greatly reduced. It also works on the road, so in trains, trams, buses, when they're moving around. And it automatically reconnects when it loses connection.
Exactly. Yeah.
No pop-ups, so that helps also a lot. So security was very happy because VPN was not everyone needed a VPN anymore, so that really helped with the network security bit. And it's consistent behavior from anywhere. If you're on the office, it's always the same. For the user, it's always the same. I open my laptop, I log on, I start the application. It works, including files, printers, whatever. So we learned some lessons. Yes, we did, and a lot. So, of course, when you're routing everything to the internet and back, it does something to your MON. You want your internet link. So monitor those good. Monitor those very correctly, because Monday morning at 8 o'clock when everyone is opening shop at the same moment,
Store.
it will connect. Everything will connect into it. So you have a log-on storm, but it's a connection storm.
Yeah.
Monitor the load on the connectors. See if the connectors can handle the amount of traffic that's put through them. And because if the connector gets to 100% CPU load, it's the same as a Citrix server getting to 100% CPU load. It will perform erratic. The internal network setup is really important that when you're using the private access sensor, that the application has no line of sight, because Windows can be funny sometimes, because I'm on the network and I run SAP and it's saying, hey, SAP needs to run to the cloud. Windows can always decide, yes, and I'm not going to do that.
No, it just goes directly.
Yeah.
You get the network up the pop. Okay.
So we found that out during testing, that sometimes when you're in the office and we had the pass configured, that it still would pop up with NTLM. But once we blocked the client VLAN from connecting,
So internet only.
yeah,
So
internet only, then it would always work. So that's something that we found funny. That should happen, but it's
second.
yeah. So database performance. If you have database performance, you can always connect using ILA, saying, okay, well, we're in the office, just connect directly. That will improve.
But do it selectively.
But do it selectively. Try to use the same thing for everything. 5 minutes, okay. So that's the same with Citrix and any remoting. It also depends on the internet connection of the user. If they, for example, have a bad internet connection in their hotel in Vietnam, GSA will also not perform because it's internet routing, internet based. So that's something that we need to tell our users. So mixing of the intelligent local access and private access sensors together does not work because
it's also a bit of strange to combine it, because what are you doing then? Strictly zero trust or performance-wise, they're like directly line of sight. So it's not a combination.
No, it's not a combination. So just getting into the highlights now, because we need to be on time for lunch. I know we're sitting between we are sitting between lunch. You should put some exclusions in Microsoft Defender for the agent so it performs better. Some executables should be excluded from scanning. That helps in with the speed. Choose your build with IPv6. If you run IPv6 on your internal network, you also need to configure global secure access and secure private access to work with that or disable it. Limit the connector access. So the connector is sitting in your network, but it's a VM and it could connect to anywhere in the world. We don't want that, but you can find a list for Microsoft allowed URLs and IP addresses online. So let the connector only connect to Microsoft. That if there's an issue with it and he tries to connect to Russia or any other friendly country or less friendly country, it will be blocked by the firewall and you will get notified that the controller. 1 minute.
Yeah, no, it was just a question. The list from Microsoft would be allowed URLs.
Yes.
I've used that in other scenarios and I've experienced that it's maybe not always fully complete.
No, but that's with all documentation.
So you have to use your firewall to see where it's actually trying to connect to and those as well.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say the 100% Microsoft list is 80% correct, and the other 20% is trial and error. Yeah.
Use your firewall logging.
Yeah, use the firewall logging to fix that. So bring your own. Yeah, sure.
This is a Microsoft global access VPN solution.
Yeah.
Have you tested the Citrix private access?
No, in this case not, because I did that a few years ago when they did the Zen Mobile, including Netscaler on the mobile devices thing. That also worked very good. But in this case, we didn't test it because the customer said because of licensing issues, I want to get rid of all the Citrix, so also the Netscalers, everything needs to go. So, but in a Citrix scenario, if you have Citrix you want keeping, this is a valid scenario.
If you have the license, then it's already included.
Yeah, the license is already included. So bring your own device. We said please use Cloud PC, EVD, or whatever. Don't bring your own users with installing a client and
do it.
pinching holes in the network. Overlapping of FQDNs or ports in the different apps does not work. So if you have two FQDNs saying server.iot.local port 443 in Enterprise app 1 and in app 2, and you give them both apps.
For database applications, you have more databases on one single server, more apps. You cannot do that because you have more than one enterprise app and you get port overlap. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not compatible.
It ain't working. Been there. Let's see. So disabled negative curve trust. We tried it running it on virtual desktop cloud PC. It works in single user scenarios only.
Yeah.
Because the GSA client works on the network stack. And if you have multiple users running on the same and they all go through the same network, then secure private access says, this sounds like a complex thing and I don't know what to allow. And private access server, private access does not work in all scenarios.
No.
So, how many times is now? 1 minute.
1 minute, yeah.
Oh, we're getting there. Not for second to last slide. So, what we did in our project is this is the best practices we distilled. So, start with the identity, not with the network. So, design per app access. So, look at the application. Who needs this application? Where does this application go? And are there other applications that can use the same access package? If not, check it and build one, design a per app access. So wave-based onboarding, get your personas, those are the people that we can onboard on a new solution and they can work with it while keeping the rest of the old solution, which also works. Be deliberate about single sign-on and legacy authentication, so NTLM Shouldn't do that. Not often.
No.
I think that's the end of the presentation. So test vital application first. Because if you know that those work, then probably the rest will also be working. And if one of those doesn't work, that's not the biggest issue. The project will still be successful. Use FQDNs, of course. Monitor everything from day one, and use intelligent local access selectively. Only if the application does not perform.
If it needs it.
If it needs it, yeah. Yeah, and with that, if you have any questions, we're here all day.
Yeah.
Thanks for being our guest and listening
Thank you
to us
very much.
ramble about 40 minutes about secure private access. Thanks to our sponsors and to EUCtech Denmark. Thank you all.